Zinc is one of those elements that sits quietly beneath the surface of your life, doing the work that allows everything else to function. It doesn't announce itself the way caffeine does, or demand attention like sugar when your energy crashes. Instead, it operates in the background, regulating the systems that keep you resilient when life becomes difficult. Your immune response, your hormonal balance, your ability to heal, and even the way your brain communicates with itself depend, in no small part, on adequate zinc levels. When zinc is present in sufficient amounts, the body behaves as though it knows what it's doing. When it's missing, disorder creeps in. From a psychological standpoint, that matters more than we often realize. The brain is not separate from the body, it is an organ embedded within it. If the biological foundation is unstable, clarity of thought and emotional regulation suffer. People often interpret this as a personal failing, low motivation, mental fog, irritability, when in reality the system itself is under-resourced. Zinc plays a critical role in neurotransmitter activity and stress regulation. Without it, the mind struggles to maintain focus and composure under pressure. With it, there is a subtle but profound shift toward steadiness and competence. What's important here is that zinc isn't best understood as a pill or a quick fix. It's a signal embedded in food, particularly whole, natural foods that human beings have relied on for generations. Seeds, legumes, vegetables, and unrefined plant sources provide zinc in a form that the body recognizes and integrates intelligently. This is not accidental. Nature tends to package what you need with the systems required to absorb and use it properly. When you eat zinc-rich foods consistently, you're not just preventing deficiency, you're reinforcing order at the cellular level. And order, philosophically speaking, is what allows meaning to emerge. A body that functions well gives rise to a mind that can aim itself properly. When the foundation is strong, you're better equipped to take responsibility, pursue goals, and withstand adversity. So the question becomes less about nutrition trends and more about whether you're willing to support the structure that allows you to live deliberately. Strength doesn't begin with willpower alone, it begins with providing the body what it needs to stand upright in the world. When you begin to understand food not merely as fuel, but as information, the conversation around nutrition changes entirely. Every time you eat, you are sending instructions into your body, signals that shape how your brain functions, how your hormones respond, and how consistently you can perform under pressure. Zinc-rich foods are particularly powerful in this respect because zinc sits at the crossroads between metabolism, cognition, and emotional regulation. It influences how efficiently your brain cells communicate, how well you adapt to stress, and how clearly you can think when the demands of life increase. From a psychological perspective, this is crucial. Many people struggle with focus, impulse control, and mental fatigue, and they often frame these issues as failures of discipline or character. But discipline cannot operate in a vacuum. The brain requires raw materials to generate stable attention and coherent thought. Zinc supports neurotransmitter balance and synaptic function, which directly affect memory, learning, and decision-making. When zinc intake is adequate, the mind becomes less reactive and more deliberate. You don't just think faster, you think better. There's also a deeper philosophical implication here. If food is information, then habitual food choices become a form of self-programming. Whole foods that are naturally rich in zinc, vegetables, seeds, legumes, and other unprocessed sources, deliver signals of order and efficiency. They provide the mineral alongside fibers, phytonutrients, and enzymes that enhance absorption and utilization. This creates a biological environment where energy is stable rather than volatile, and motivation is sustained rather than forced. Over time, this stability translates into confidence, because the system you're relying on is no longer betraying you. What's often overlooked is how subtle these changes are. You don't wake up one day transformed. Instead, clarity accumulates. Emotional volatility decreases. Decisions become less exhausting. You begin to experience the quiet advantage of a mind that isn't constantly compensating for internal chaos. This is why zinc-rich foods aren't about short-term optimization, they're about creating conditions where long-term growth is possible. And that leads to a simple but demanding conclusion: if you want your thoughts to be sharp and your actions to be intentional, you must choose foods that support the architecture of the mind. Because when you feed your body the right information, clarity stops being a struggle and becomes your default state. At some point, the discussion about nutrition has to move beyond information and enter the realm of responsibility. Once you understand that what you eat directly shapes how resilient you are, physically, mentally, and emotionally, you can no longer pretend that food choices are neutral. They are decisions about the kind of future you are willing to inhabit. Zinc-rich foods, in particular, play a long game. They support immune competence, reproductive health, cellular repair, and metabolic stability over time. These are not cosmetic benefits, they are the biological foundations of endurance and longevity. From a philosophical perspective, responsibility always implies delayed gratification. You don't eat well today for applause tomorrow morning. You do it because you recognize that neglect compounds just as reliably as discipline does. Zinc deficiency doesn't usually announce itself dramatically. It erodes slowly through frequent illness, persistent fatigue, declining focus, and a general sense that your capacity to cope is shrinking. In contrast, consistently nourishing the body with zinc-dense foods quietly strengthens you. You become harder to destabilize, less fragile in the face of stress, and more capable of sustaining effort over long periods. There is also something deeply practical here. Modern life encourages convenience over competence. Highly processed foods offer immediate pleasure but very little structural support for the body. Whole foods rich in zinc, vegetables, seeds, legumes, and traditional staples require intention. They demand that you plan, prepare, and commit. But that small act of discipline mirrors the larger pattern of a responsible life. You practice order in one domain, and it begins to spread to others. Nutrition becomes a daily rehearsal for self-respect. What makes this especially powerful is that the benefits accumulate beneath your awareness. A stronger immune system means fewer interruptions. Hormonal balance supports emotional stability. Cellular repair influences how well you age, how quickly you recover, and how confidently you move through the world. These outcomes are not abstract, they determine how available you are to your responsibilities, your ambitions, and the people who depend on you. So when you choose zinc-rich foods, you are not merely improving your diet. You are making a statement about the kind of person you intend to become. You are aligning your daily behavior with a future that demands strength rather than excuses. And that is worth reflecting on. The future you want is built, quite literally, one deliberate meal at a time.